Hello, everyone. Welcome to a bonus episode of our Student Story Week. I'm super excited for this live stream that we're about to do. So you can see I'm with four amazing international students from Husson University, and we're going to be talking about a super important topic. We're going to be discussing mental health and wellness, which is obviously something that has been on everyone's minds, I think, over the past year. But before we get into our topic, I'd like to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. So just let us know where you're from, what you're studying at Husson, and maybe how long you've been there. So Oscar, do you want to go first?
Of course. Hello, I'm Oscar. I'm from Sweden, Gothenburg, Sweden, and I'm studying business administration, financial management. And I just finished my second year at Hudson.
Awesome. Congratulations. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, Ivana, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ivana Dewanovich. I am going to be a senior at Hudson this upcoming fall, and I'm studying environmental science. That's my major, but I'm also minoring in legal studies, biology, and sustainability, and I come from Belgrade, Serbia.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So you have a lot on your plate when it comes to academics.
I like to keep myself busy. That's good for my mental health.
Yeah, good. Awesome. All right, Nicholas, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Nicholas and I'm from Georgia. I just graduated on pre-law. So
Congratulations.
very much.
Do you know what you're doing next?
I'm searching a job currently in the United States.
Okay. Awesome. Pre-law, how was that?
I don't know. I want to go to school, but we'll see where it takes us.
Awesome. Well, I think Sadie jumped out. If she jumps back in, I will have her introduce herself. I heard she was having some internet issues, but before we dive into our topic as well, I want to know, we have a mix of students from, different years. Nicholas, you just graduated. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Ivana, you have one more year. Oscar, you have a couple more years. I'm assuming you all have different reasons for why you chose Husson. So does anyone want to tell me, what led you to study at Husson University?
Yeah, I would like to share my story. So I used to be a synchronized swimmer when I was home, and it was a big part of my life. I was always an athlete. So I kind of wanted to continue that, but I also knew that I want to study environmental science. And then I discovered that New England is a place to be if you do want to study environmental science, just because you have an opportunity to spend a lot of time outside and you have good lab resources. So I discovered that Hudson has a swimming team, so that allowed me to keep being a student athlete while also deepening my understanding on what is my ecological identity and how can I contribute to protect what is around us. So Hudson fit the mold, and I found my place there.
That's amazing. Yeah, and Maine's a beautiful state. You have so much different things to go see. You can go hiking, you can be outdoors, you're by the ocean. So lots of cool stuff to study, I'm sure.
And yeah, you mentioned hiking. I'm a vice president of a hiking club, soon to be a president.
Oh, wow.
So Maine is a great place to be if you do like outdoors. So for anyone listening that likes to spend their time outside, this is definitely an area that you should check out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Ivana. Oscar, Nicholas, do you want to share why you chose to study at Husson?
Yes, both me and Nicholas are soccer players. So
Nice.
we I think both of us picked Hudson mainly because of soccer, but also because of the great opportunities there. We are one of the most best priced colleges in the New England, private universities in the New England region as well. So it's very good, especially coming from a country where universities use you for free.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's important to look at, the price. Do you regret coming to Husson instead of staying?
Not at all.
Good to hear.
It's been a blast so far, yeah.
Awesome.
It was same thing for me. I was also planning to leave Hudson after 1 year. However, the faculty was so nice, so grateful. I don't know, everything you're going to ask them, they were going to respond to you. everything you need help with, they were always there for me. So I stayed at Husson because of that.
Yeah, that's so important, to feel like you have that support. And I also personally know a few people at Husson, and they are absolutely amazing. So with that, let's just go ahead and dive into our topic. I think that leads in nicely to mental health and wellness. As we mentioned before, this past year has been a struggle, I think, for everyone when it comes to the pandemic. And then on top of that, you guys have school and exams and sports and all this stuff that you've had to process and work through while you've been on campus. So I don't know if anyone would like to maybe share a little bit about maybe the resources that Husson offers that you've taken advantage of, or share your story a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't personally take an opportunity of many resources on campus, but there are many. For example, our wellness center provides counseling services, and they send weekly updates to everyone via email about what events are they doing, what hours they're open. They would send an encouraging message to everyone. I also know that a lot of resident assistants in dorms organize a lot of different floor programs, which allowed people to connect with one another, which seemed to be an issue for many students, especially for freshmen, that this was their first year at Hudson and they don't know many people and they don't know their way around and how the community looks like without pandemic. So events like that were definitely helpful. Hudson also had something called a Fresh Check Day, which is a mental health awareness day. Mm-hmm. And they spent a lot of time focusing on quote unquote smaller issues one at a time, from what it feels to be lonely and how can you overcome that, to how does it feel to be stranded in a different country. I personally didn't feel the need to go and check out any of those resources myself, but I know people that did, regardless of if they're international student or domestic student. So Hudson was very supporting of everyone. I personally was involved in many different activities, so I did not feel the loneliness that many people did. But from what I heard, a lot of people took advantage of them, and they're very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's great to have those resources and, be at a school that facilitates those different activities to help you not feel lonely, help you feel connected. I know you guys all have sort of a little bit of a different experience since you were involved with athletics. That obviously helps give you like a little bit of a community, but did any of you struggle with like homesickness or feeling lonely as international students, and especially during the pandemic?
I think it's quite obvious. I think every international student feel homesick at some point. Yeah. I mean, leaving friends and families that you've known for your whole life is a huge change in your life pattern. Personally, I think that the campus has given me the opportunity to befriend people on a different level. The small campus size and the close connection to faculty has helped me a lot with fighting my mental issues, if that's what you want to call them.
That's good. What about you, Nicholas?
I've never felt homesick before till pandemic.
Well, that's good. Until the pandemic hit.
And because I got stuck in the United States over the summer, and it was just tough times. But I met some friends around the area, around the Hudson, who I met, and they live nearby, and their families. And when there was no one around, I usually just hanged out with them, and they support me a lot, which I really appreciate. I was going to say in Maine, people are also absolutely amazing.
That's really good. Yeah, I think that's nice that, especially if your other friends were on campus and you got stuck there over the summer, it was probably a little weird to get used to, not really knowing who was there, and you had to kind of branch out, meet new people. But it's nice to know that people welcomed you in.
Yeah,
Ivana, were you going to say something?
I just kind of wanted to connect to both Oscar and Nico to what they were saying about, obviously you will have times when you do feel down. It doesn't necessarily have to be described as homesickness. You're going to miss your comfort zone, whether that is being home or friends or family. You're going to feel like you're out of place sometimes, and that happens for everyone. You have people that live hour away and they still feel like Hudson isn't necessarily their home, but after a while you meet and surround yourself with great people, as Nico said. And I'm lucky enough to have a great support system, and that I found people that support me in many different ways. And I wasn't able to go home for 2 years now, since pandemic started, but I was lucky to have people that can provide me a true meaning of home in Maine. But I was also lucky enough to experience Maine through all 4 seasons. And for those who do not know, Maine is very cold most of the time. So I got to experience Maine in the summer, and who knew that there is Maine without snow? So if it wasn't for pandemic, even though it sounds kind of weird, even though if it wasn't for pandemic, I wouldn't have many great experiences that I have. So you kind of have to look for the best in the worst situations. And that's kind of what I feel like all 3 of us are saying. You cannot just sit there and be homesick and dwell. You kind of have to know, like, why did you come here in the first place? And that's for you to grow as a person. And this was a great learning opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. You know, try to think back, try to remember why you're there in the first place. Try to connect with that excitement you had about, you know, before you got there, what you were looking forward to. That can kind of help you get back to feeling centered and remembering why you're sticking it out and why it's going to be worth it. And Ivana, I think you brought up a great point when it comes to weather. You know, I don't know if you 3, I'm assuming you all 3 had experienced snow before being in Maine, just because of where you're from. But, you know, for some people that come from warm climates, weather can also be a huge impact on their mental health. You know, there's like seasonal depression that comes from, you know, when it's cold and snowy and it gets dark earlier. A lot of people struggle with that. And especially when it's a long winter. Did any of you guys experience that being in Maine in the winter?
Not really. No.
That's good.
I think I fell in love with the winter after I came to Maine. I never knew it, but I think I like winter more than summer now. So I don't know. It just changed my mind. It's sometimes it's getting very, very cold, but it's usually very nice.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
I do enjoy snowshoeing and skiing, though. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun when you can get out and play in the snow. It's not so fun when you have to like drive or walk to class and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I live on campus, so everything is 5 minutes away from me.
Oh, so, that's good.
So I don't have to drive around a lot, but I can see how that would be a struggle for many people. But people in New England are used to having snow. People that are not from New England area and they come here, they are sometimes a little bit challenged when it comes to driving, but they get used to it pretty fast.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, moving on a little bit from the pandemic and that sort of thing. Well, before we move on, would anyone like to add anything about how you dealt with stress and anxiety and those kinds of things from the pandemic? Or would you like to move on?
Well, I can just say probably for all 3 of us, sports were definitely a big one. You mentioned it already, that we were lucky enough to have, you know, our teammates and some sort of community when it comes to athletics. So I would say that was probably a big one for a lot of people that are student athletes, probably not only in Hudson, but everywhere else. Even though our seasons were pretty different and you had to adhere to all the guidelines, it was still better than not doing sports.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like doing something active, I think that even people who are athletes or people who weren't previously active, I think a lot of people started getting outside more during the pandemic. They started maybe not even outside, but just doing different types of exercise and stuff to move their bodies around. I think that helped a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's awesome you guys were all involved with athletics. And even though, like you said, Ivana, they looked a little bit different over this past year, you still had something to do, and you still kind of had that social aspect, which I think is super important.
I already mentioned about hiking club, but won the Club of the Year award this year for Husson. And that was because we had more than 30 active members that went on hikes, and more than 80% of those people never went on a hike before, or they were always afraid to go for a hike, and a lot of them are not from Maine. I mean, it's quite rugged. There's a vast amount of mountains and hills that you can go and visit. So just being outside and meeting new people through that was a benefit for a lot of people on campus.
That's awesome. I think that's a great thing to point out. I also, when the pandemic started, I went home to Ohio. I'm from Ohio originally. And a lot of what I did, at the beginning, they were telling us not to see anyone, not to meet up with your family or your friends. And the only thing that we could think of doing was going on walks or going on hikes with, different family members and friends, and we could all space out and walk together. And I think that's awesome that Husson had a hiking club. It sounds like that was a well-deserved award. That's great. Now, I know, again, we're all a little like pandemicked out. So I want to talk a little bit about you three as athletes. You're balancing school, you're balancing your athletics, you're balancing a social life. What do you guys do that kind of helps you deal with the stress that comes along with like juggling so many different things?
I think time management is a huge benefit that we've all learned at Husson. At least talking from my own perspective, Husson has taught me how to manage my time efficiently, so I have time to go have fun and at the same time do well in school and in athletics. Yeah.
That's a great point. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to add with that? Time management. I also agree that's a huge thing.
Time management is a good thing. Try to sleep at least 8 hours and then eat healthy. That's other two things. I believe that's going to help you.
Yeah, I agree with both of those statements, but I would also add to have your priorities straight in a way. I know that college is a fun experience for all of us. And for many people, it's the first time being away from home for a long period of time, and you completely depend on yourself. And I know although it is fun to just go and do sports and go and hang out with your friends, you kind of have to remember that is an important place. And so you kind of have to, as Oscar said, you have to have a good time management to kind of fit all of those pieces together, but to kind of remember why you came there in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, all three of you mentioned at different times about how amazing the faculty is at Husson and how the faculty kind of just made everything helpful for you. I mean, Nicholas, you said you stayed pretty much because of the faculty. Would anyone like to share any stories about how like the Husson faculty sort of helped you or supported you?
I will share some stories.
Okay. I like your attitude, Nicholas.
So every time I went to see my advisor, she just sat me down and she just talked to me for 30 minutes, maybe more if I didn't laugh, and tell me exactly what can I do to make my life better. What can I do? What class I need to take to help me through future that I'm planning, and who I need to talk to. She gave me all the numbers. She helped me to get through internship.
Yeah.
She got me internship.
Wow.
To call these people, talk to them, be communicative, do this, do that. I'm very helpful what she has done and what many people has done through.
Yeah. Well, and that's just such an important thing to point out too, the help from your advisor. It can make all the difference if you have a good advisor, because you're talking about future life decisions here. You're talking about what you want to do next. how you can get the most out of your time while you're doing your undergrad or your master's degree, whatever it may be, in this case, undergrad. So to have someone who's knowledgeable and can help you not only guide you with recommendations, but actually help you with action items, break it down into smaller pieces, that can make the goal feel so much more attainable and not so like far off in the future. So I think that's an awesome thing to point out. Yeah. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to share any experience with faculty at Husson, how they may have supported you or helped you?
Yeah, sure. So as Nick mentioned, having a good advisor is a foundation to your success pretty much. They're there to guide you. And a lot of people fear to go to a faculty and talk with them, but in reality, they are there for you. They're there to help you. And they are the most important resource you do have on campus, both when it comes to your academics, but also when it comes to kind of dealing with some of your personal issues. And my advisor helped me also kind of figure out an internship last summer because I had to stay here in Maine. So kind of how can we put that in my curriculum, and just supported me throughout my academic career, but also on a personal note, just checking on me and see how I'm doing and how I'm dealing with stress and everything else. And I know, for example, last summer we sent emails once a week, just checking in and also talking about random stuff. For example, talking about how do I make bread back home and how does the recipe compares to the US. All the simple things. So just that shows you that faculty is willing to talk with you and be friendly with you, but you have to make the first step. You cannot expect that people are going to come to you if you don't come to them. It kind of goes both ways. It's not like one-way street of communication. You both have to be an active parties in that. And Oscar mentioned that we do have a small community, so faculty does have an opportunity to get to know you pretty well, and that goes the other way around. You get to know them pretty well as well, so you kind of have to take that opportunity as a resource.
That's such a good point that you mentioned, and that's something that's been sort of a theme in all of our streams about taking the opportunities that you have. When it comes to whatever it may be about studying abroad, you're the only one who can make things happen. So if you're feeling homesick, if you're feeling nervous, if you have a question about internships, if you want to change your major, no one's going to know that except for you. So you have to be the one to go out and talk to someone and approach someone and just kind of put yourself out there. You're the one who's in charge of your future. So you kind of have to have that motivation to not be afraid to ask for help or ask for assistance. Now, I know we're kind of going over on time a little bit, but we have some questions from viewers. Some of these are, they're a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and bring one up on the screen. This first one is really interesting, and I would just want you guys to each provide your perspective on what you think about this. So Mateos asked, I'm assuming, how can I know if a friend secretly doesn't like you or if it's her depression that makes her not enjoy when I talk to her? This is a tough one. What do you guys think about this?
Well, for me, I think that honesty is the best policy. And it depends on how well do you know your friend. If it's someone, for example, if it's your roommate, you get the clues from, how people interact to you and also like their body language and stuff. But, there's no better way to address this issue than just straight up ask, like, is there something that I can be there for you? Is it something that you're doing, or is it something that they're struggling with? And if so, how can you help them? And depending on when they answer to you, you can say that if they don't feel comfortable talking to you, you can provide them with advices to go and visit a different resource, maybe a wellness center or a faculty member or a mutual friend of yours. But at the end of the day, although a friend is someone that you like, it's not necessarily your job to fix them in a way. You can provide them with as many resources as you can, but at the end of the day, it's on them to kind of, as I said, communication goes both ways. If you try your best and the person doesn't communicate back to you, there's only so many things you can do.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to add something to this?
I believe that the people who usually have like depression, they usually never talk about it, or they talk about with like really, really small group. So if you're not really good friends with someone, maybe try to say something, just try to be very friendly and kind of say something that says like, do you need help, but not in a way that it's going to be mean, or someone is not going to understand what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a super important point to make. I think especially if you have a friend that you suspect is struggling with depression and you think it's coming out in other ways in their personality and that sort of thing, it doesn't help if you're just like, why are you mean to me? Is it because you're depressed?
Yeah.
That's not going to solve anything. You really just, I think in this case, even though it's hard to be a friend on the outside watching someone struggle, the main thing you can do is just let them know that you're there for them and you support them, and if they need to talk. And Ivana, I think that was a great idea too, to suggest some resources and say, hey, like, I think maybe this would help if you go check out this place, or if you go talk to this person. But that's definitely a touchy subject. It's something that is difficult to watch your friends go through, and especially if they're kind of taking it out on you. I think you kind of have to just not take it personally and understand that they're struggling with something, and you just need to support them. Okay, we have another question from Carla. What do you recommend doing to get your mind off of feeling homesick?
Oof, I would love to answer that.
Go ahead, Oscar.
Personally, I go and talk to people. I talk to everyone I see, and I say hi, and I ask them questions and make them talk about themselves, because that makes me talk about myself too, and I can share my feelings and emotions. We have, being part of the soccer team at Husson, I think we have around 30 players on the team that I can all go up and talk to and just discuss life in general. And I think that is a huge help for me personally.
Yeah, great point. Anyone else want to add something? How do you get your mind off of feeling homesick?
I love cooking. I usually, when I feel homesick, I just make Georgian dishes, and then
Nice.
yeah, that helps me go through with it. That reminds me back home, and it just reminds me that I can. I don't know. That just Georgian food just makes me comfortable.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Like, I do the same thing. I live in Mexico, so sometimes I'm when I'm getting homesick, especially around the holidays, like when Thanksgiving comes around, I'm never able to go home for Thanksgiving. So I'll cook like a Thanksgiving meal here. Same thing with 4th of July. I'll like grill out hamburgers and hot dogs and buy like American beer and just be like, yeah, those food and that sort of thing can really help you stay connected. Yeah. What about you, Ivana?
I like both of their approaches. They're kind of similar to sometimes stuff that I'm doing. For example, I cooked a Serbian dish yesterday, just a coincidence.
Nice.
Yeah, but besides that, I do communicate with my friends and family from back home. We are lucky enough to live in a modern technology era where you can just pick up your phone and communicate to many different social media. So I think being connected to people from back home is one thing that keeps me grounded as well. That I know that I have people that support me both here and back home. And as Oscar said, you have many people that are willing to just go and talk with them. You kind of have to not exclude yourself from a community because you're homesick. You have to make yourself even more included. And I'm a member of a couple of different clubs. I do sports. And every time I'm homesick, I go and do something, especially outside. If you didn't get it by now, I'm a very outdoorsy person. So by going for a walk or a run outside helps me clear up my mind. And also just remembering, naming a couple of things that you're grateful for is also always a good thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Gratitude is something that is super important to keep in mind. And going on that note about having gratitude, thinking about things you're grateful for, going outside. You guys have all sort of touched on this, but I just want to wrap it up with this final question. I'll start with you, Oscar. What does self-care look like to you? And is it something that you practice?
I think I do, but I don't think about it. As I said earlier, I'm a very talkative guy. I love connecting with people around campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think self-care for me is expressing emotions and feelings and sharing my thoughts, but also listening to other people and reflecting over what they think and what they do in life, and try to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Husson allowed, and the campus at Husson allowed me to learn and get different perspectives from a different part of the world. And I think that has benefited me a lot in my self-care.
That's great. What about you, Nicholas? Do you practice self-care? And if so, what does it look like for you? Oh, you're muted, Nicholas. Oh, okay, Nicholas, I think you're having some technical difficulties. So I'll go to you, Ivana. Do you practice self-care, and what does it look like to you? I know you've already kind of mentioned some things, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, as Oscar said, it's not something that I necessarily actively think about. Like, today is a good day for self-care. It kind of just happens when you have a little bit of a free time. For me, even though it sounds kind of silly, for me, even self-care is having a good schedule and having my time managed in a way that I know that I have time to do something for fun. So like I will maybe study everything I have to do one day just so I can have the entire next day free, so I can do nothing if I so want to. So that's something that I do kind of for self-care. Also, having a good ice cream is something that I would probably consider to be a good self-care. I know that we have many people watching from different parts of the world, but we have a good homemade ice cream shop just down the road from Hudson, and it's dangerously close. So like I would say, like going out with friends and getting ice cream is something that I would probably consider a good self-care on a nice Saturday evening.
For sure. You're a girl after my own heart, Ivana. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing so openly with me and with our viewers. Again, I think all the things you guys went through are things that other students are familiar with or are gonna face, and at some point during their journey. So I really just appreciate you taking the time to share yourselves with us. So thank you so much. I think Nicholas had to jump out. I think he had some internet issues. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Again, thank you both so much, and best of luck on the rest of your time at Husson University. I hope you get to go back to normal this year.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Bye, guys.